The Quiet Bridge. Introduction. There are places where the road ends, not because the land runs out, but because the hearts do. Between two villages, once brothers, there was a river. Not wide, not deep, but the kind of river that remembers everything. It remembered the quarrel. It remembered the shouting. It remembered the bridge that burned. For many years, the people of Dand and Solma lived on either side. No greetings, no trade, only the sound of water moving between them, and silence that grew louder with time. They said, "Let the river keep us apart." They said, "The wound is too old." But then came a boy, a young man with no title, no backing, no permission, just a bag of nails, a rope, and a piece of wood. He didn't speak much. He just walked to the riverbank one morning and began to build. Chapter 1. The Boy Beside the River. His name was Yero. He had no father in office, no clan behind him, no elder's blessing. He came from the edge of Dand, where the soil was poorer and roofs were lower. His home was a simple clay compound, warmed by goat dung fires and roofed with rusted tin that sang when the rain came. It was the beginning of the rainy season. The sky danced between dry heat and distant rumblings. Dust clung to every leaf, and goats chewed bark near the wells. At night, frogs called from wet ditches, and in the early mornings, birds darted through the fog like whispered hopes. Yero rose before the first cockcrow. He carried a long rope across his shoulders, the weight of his decision sitting quietly in his chest. He passed the market, still closed, and walked toward the river. He didn't shout. He didn't preach. He just began measuring wood with string, pressing pegs into the earth, and sketching shapes on a flattened board. He laid the pieces out like a prayer, uncertain but sincere. Children came to watch. Some laughed. Some said, "What is this?" One boy thinks he can do what two villages refuse to do. Yero smiled gently, the kind of smile that doesn't argue. By the fifth day, a few more came to watch, not out of curiosity, but out of confusion. Does he think this river will forget? Does he even know why the bridge was burned? He knew the rumors. One said it was over a stolen cow. Another said a love affair had turned sour, and the shame swallowed both banks. Still, Yero kept working. He placed the first log into the riverbank by hand, soaked his shoes, and fell once. But he stood again. A dog barked from the Solma side. An egret landed near his tools. The world watched. By the seventh day, the smell of wet wood and sweat filled the air. The first plank crossed the water. Chapter 2. The Scar and the Silence. Years ago, no one truly remembered why Dand and Solma had fallen apart. Some said it was land. Some said it was pride. Others said it was something smaller, but that pride made it grow, like a thorn that entered through a scratch but poisoned the whole limb. The old bridge had been made of palm trunks and rope. It burned during a market feud. Since then, each side built inward, never across. Yero's mother, Hadja, remembered. She had been a child when it happened. She had watched the flames rise, watched her uncle's house turn to ash. She said nothing when Yero told her what he planned, only looked at him and said, "If you fall, fall forward. Even a wound earned in truth can be medicine." Yero nodded. There was a time when he asked her why no one rebuilt. She answered, "Because everyone wanted to be the one not blamed, not the one who began." By the 10th day, he had 7 planks down. Uneven, simple, but together. The river flowed slower now, as if curious. A man from Solma came to the other bank. He had a grey beard and the shoulders of a man who once farmed yams. He shouted, "Boy, are you from Dand?" Yero nodded. "Then why build toward us? You don't belong here." Yero replied, "Then meet me in the middle, and I'll go no further." The man squinted. "And if no one comes? Then I will stop, but I will not remove what I've built." The man said nothing, but he didn't leave. The next morning, Yero found a plank already placed from the Solma side. No note, just wood, and a nail half-driven. A monkey sat on a tree branch, chewing a mango, watching. Even the birds seemed quieter that morning. Chapter 3. Speaking First. The rains came and went. Thunder rolled through the hills like an old drum. At night, fireflies danced near the reeds, and frogs sang loudly across the wet fields. Still, the bridge grew. Not with speeches. Not with money. Not with elders nodding in public. But with planks shared in silence and hands that no longer feared reaching across. 2 boys from Solma helped from the other side. They came early and left before noon. One limped slightly. The other wore a red scarf and always hummed old praise songs while hammering. They never said their names. They never asked euros. But they worked. One day, a woman from Dand left euro food in a leaf wrap. The next, a boy brought twine. Another came with an old toolbox his grandfather had once used to build water troughs. By the 3rd week, the bridge reached halfway across. Still shaky, still open. But it was a line of wood across silence. People began to gather daily. Some came to offer tools. Some came to sit quietly. Some came to remember. A cow from Solma crossed halfway once. Then returned. A trader from Dand mumbled, "Even the cow believes in crossing." Children, bold in ways adults were not, played near the river now. They shouted to each other across the gap, tossed pebbles, and laughed. One evening, as the sun set over the western hills, the river reflected a different kind of sky, one no longer stained with old fire. Above it, kingfishers nested again, as if building had made the air safer. A herder said softly, "Maybe the river was never the enemy. Maybe we were." Chapter 4. The Footsteps. One night, as Yero sat by the unfinished bridge, an elder from Dand came. His name was Baba Dimo. He had been against the bridge long ago, that he was a man of proverbs, the kind that cut deeper than insult. He stood beside Yero and looked at the work. "You think wood will solve what memory holds?" Yero replied, "Wood won't solve, but maybe it will speak first." Baba Dimo nodded slowly. "Do you know what the bridge was called?" Yero shook his head. "It was called Kande, the step between hearts." He dropped a small pouch beside Yero. Inside, old iron nails, still strong. "My father used those to build the first one." Then he left. The wind picked up that night. A hyena howled in the far hills. But Yero worked by lantern. Let the bridge carry memory, even if the mouths cannot. The next morning, a woman from Solma stood at the edge. She didn't cross. But she smiled. And that was enough. Later that day, the chief of Dand came in a robe of deep blue. He stood with arms crossed and watched Yero. "They will say you have no permission," he said. Yero answered. "Then let them say I asked forgiveness with wood." The chief said nothing, but he remained long after Yero went home. Chapter 5. The Middle Plank. There is a moment in every build when the last nail feels heavier than the first tree. Yero stood on his side of the bridge. Across from him stood one of the Solma boys. Only one plank left. They looked at each other. Then lifted the wood together. Placed it down. And hammered it once. Together. The bridge held. Not beautifully. Not evenly. But truly. A path now crossed the river. And the silence cracked. A girl from Solma walked across first. Just to the middle. Just to see. A woman from Dand stepped out next. She met the girl's eyes. And nodded. That afternoon, a group of elders from both sides stood under the baobab tree. Tea was poured. For the first time in years, names were exchanged. Not apologies. Not yet. But presents. By the next market day, a trader from Solma crossed to sell honey. A weaver from Dand crossed to offer dyed cloth. By the end of the month, children from both villages sat together under the tree near the bridge, sharing stories. The bridge had done what words could not. It invited movement. As for Yero, he did not remain. One morning, before sunrise, he packed his tools and walked away. Not out of pride. Not for glory. But because his part was done. They found a note pinned to a post. "Do not let the bridge rot. If it breaks again, Let it be from rain, not hearts. No one saw him again. Jiro had been planning to travel for months. He had quietly prepared, but something always held him back, the broken bridge. He had long hoped the villagers would rebuild it themselves, that the bond between Dand and Solma could be restored. The mistake was not ours, he often thought. It was made by another generation. Why should we continue to suffer for it? His generation had not fought. They had not burned the bridge. They had only inherited the silence. And yet, they were the ones still paying for it. Jiro knew he could leave. But he could not leave without doing something. Whether he would return, he could not say. But before he took his journey, he made a quiet promise to himself. I will not go while the bridge is still broken. So he built it, not for pride, not for praise, but because someone had to begin. Jiro left, but sometimes, at dawn, when the fog sits gently on the water and the planks creak beneath soft feet, they say you can hear a hammer echo, and the children call it Jiro's bridge. The end. Closing message to the listener. Thank you for listening to The Quiet Bridge. This story was never just about wood and water. It was about the courage to begin what others had given up on. About one young man who didn't ask permission to do what was right. In a world that teaches us to build walls, may you have the strength to build bridges. And when your work is done, may you walk away quietly, knowing it will last. Until the next story, walk gently and build bravely. Dedication. The book is dedicated to those who make the first move towards peace, the ones who start when no one else will, and to those who meet them halfway, with open hands and hearts that remember how to hope.